Sister's house, and behind this building is a church. We'll see it in a minute. And the church kind of blocked the water from this ruining the sister's house.
Well, totally destroying it because it had.
I mean, the water still went in, but that church got wiped out.
It was like up to the roof on that house.
And that's the wall. That's the levee right there. Water came up and over right there, and that was about a block away. There were homes right here in this field, which now is a field. That was a driveway.
Look over here
driveway
to the left.
They're just gone.
Collapsed.
There's, you see some steps there.
Some of these homes that are brick homes are really, I mean, they're standing still, but the interior of them, once it got wet, the mold just grew like that because of the temperatures.
Oh,
and you can see what it did to the roads.
The steps right there. That's all that's left of the porch.
Again, where we're at now is we were at Ronald and Denise Santamont's home. That was their home. That fence, that gate, you go into there, that's their porch. And Ronald was the presiding overseer at Industrial Canal Congregation, which met at 4411 Congress. And Denise, his wife, she's a regular pioneer. And I like just to share their experience because it kind of reflects the experience of the brotherhood here. Now, their experience was when they came to their home, you can imagine, they had 15 feet of water here. And they were stripped of everything. And so you can imagine her emotion as she would come to her home for the first time. And as she related her experience, her emotions got the better of her, which you would expect. And so naturally, she just, emotion carried her out, back out the gate. And her husband went to get her. But their experience is this: that was not their greatest loss. And we mentioned that. Being stripped of everything. Now their greatest loss that same day was they had lost their congregation, which was no more. And that's important because the congregation is a pillar in support of the truth. And when we have a problem, we're encouraged to go to the brotherhood for support. Well, they had no more congregation. In fact, they lost their circuit that day. But again, and that is carried throughout the area on various levels. But the important thing is, when you go through a trial like we went through, where is your support? Well, we are taught that we go to Jehovah, and that's important. And the reason is, Jehovah is an integrity keeper, but he's also theocratic. So what was Jehovah doing in behalf of his people? And this is a great contrast. And we want it to be known, and it is being known, and we want it to be known loudly. As a matter of record, in an organized manner, only Jehovah's Witnesses were going to the shelters to look for their own. That's a matter of record. That's theocratic government at work. And so, only us were at the Dome and at the Montreal Convention Center looking for our own. Immediately after the hurricane, this is what theocratic government was doing. The governing body, using the faithful slave class, was at work. 2 days after the hurricane, there was a meeting of appointed elders in this area and they had a meeting in Alexandria, Louisiana, and they were informed on how to go to the shelters throughout the areas and look for God's sheep. During that same time, a relief center was set up in Baton Rouge immediately. We're talking after the storm, immediately, 2 days. That's theocratic government at work. And there's a contrast. And we know the contrast what it is. And it was not working. It had failed miserably. 3 days after the hurricane, Thursday, a letter was sent to the local congregation, and I was in Baton Rouge at the time. And what happened was, forms came down from the society. And it encouraged the friends to open up their homes. And so you would get a form and fill it out on what you could do if you chose to. And you're encouraged to pray about it. And the reason was, as the brothers would get the friends from the shelters, they need to house them. They needed to house them. And so they would place you with suitable housing according to your needs. If you was a single sister and they had a form with another single sister, so I could take a single sister, well, they would take that sister and they would contact the one who put the form in, and they would meet each other, and they would bring that person to their congregation. But it was an interesting note was how theocratic the slave is, following the example of Jehovah and his son, and how wise they are. And that's why you were encouraged to pray about it, because it says, now remember, these brothers have went through a traumatic event. No doubt you have your own concerns. But remember, if you bring these brothers in your home, you cannot put them out. You cannot put these brothers out and not be at peace with God. So before you do this, pray about it. Understand the situation, the circumstance. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. So I thought that was very loving on both sides. But you would expect that from theocratic government. Because theocratic government is basic, a function is godly love. That's how it operates. It comes from Jehovah, the God of love. And so that's what was happening. To show you the quality of theocratic government in contrast to worldly government, when the flood came here, as a matter of record, the religions were nowhere to be seen. Protestants, other religions were nowhere to be seen, to be found. Government had shut down, the commercial system had failed. The only government that was running in an organized manner was theocratic government. That's a matter of record. In an organized manner. There were reports of people from other religions, they wanted to send things down, they didn't know who to contact, who to get in touch with. Not theocratic government. It was set up and it was running in function. And the interesting thing of note was what we learned was when Katrina struck, the society, and we're talking about the faith in this street slave class, Christian congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, were dealing with 36 relief operations around the globe at the time. That's theocratic government at work. And it's functioning. And so we could appreciate that. 6 days after the hurricane, a letter went out to all the congregations in the United States instructing them what to do if any of the sheep arrived. And that was important. But see, we expected that, because remember, we're Bible readers. Now, Jesus said at Luke 15:4, and in other gospel accounts that, who of you with 100 sheep on losing one will not leave the 99 on the mountainside and go look for the one? And he did that. But also he said, my sheep listen to my voice. And that's why he could send these letters to the congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses, because that's where his voice is heard. And that's where theocratic government is taught. And he know and knew that the sheep who listened to his voice would go to the kingdom hall. And that's why it's important that we go and participate in theocratic government. You see? Even after that, this is what theocratic government was doing. Immediately when we came back here in Kenner, which was the first place to be allowed to open, food started coming in at the Kenner Kingdom Hall at 3,001 veterans. I mean to the rooftop. And that was significant. Why? You see, there were no stores open. There were no relief centers. Only relief people could really get, and they were taking a chance, was Red Cross. They could get food from Red Cross. But theocratic government was taking care of its own. So we could go to the meeting and we would leave with water and bread and other things. See, that's theocratic government at work. And that's why it's so important. And the thing about it was the Friends it uplifted the Friends because, see, remember, we weren't reading a story. True, it was. But we weren't reading it out of the Watchtower or the yearbook. It was us. And it was Jehovah fighting for us. And like one brother, his example was, his experience was, he was saying he had $10,000 cash in his truck when he left for the hurricane. And he had his credit card, but he couldn't use it because the system had shut down. But Jehovah never shuts down. Never. And that was the lesson. Theocratic government will always be working. It works in band land. Theocratic government will never be shut down. Jehovah always going to see to that. No one can check his hand. And that's what we're finding out personally, that theocratic government works. But we're going to talk more about that later. It's a little warm here, and I understand. But as we got some Kingdom Hall stuff, and we're going to further this comment. But I want you to take some pictures if you choose to. And that's a water line on that home there, on the rooftop. You can see where there's a ventilation coming out of the top of the roof. That's where the water line was here in this area.
It is amazing though how the stinking government shuts down. You can't even use your credit card, but yet the witnesses are still going.
Yep. That was a good point that he made there.
I didn't understand what he meant by, he said he had $10,000 in a credit card, but the credit
You
card
didn't get that? He couldn't spend his money. He couldn't even spend his money. There's nothing open, but he could go to the Kingdom Hall and get food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Without cost, you know, or I mean,
Free.
a donation, you know.
What you see here is a Kingdom Hall that has had the back wall to the parking lot removed so that it can serve as a supply warehouse for the materials that we'd need to fix the homes. Jehovah, being a God of order, the distribution of these building materials and supplies was not done haphazardly. Many in these warehouses serve the function of gatekeepers, and many of them sisters. They wouldn't allow you out of that Kingdom Hall without noting what supplies you were getting and which house they were going to. It's interesting to note, too, that the United States government had agencies that checked on charities and organizations that received donations and things from corporations. And they found that Jehovah's people were able to account for the dollars spent within a few $100s out of the millions that had been given or donated. Many of the houses worked on were in effect completely renovated, getting new roofs, new wiring, new plumbing, everything being brought up to code. They had structural repairs made, drywall, interior painting, cabinetry and countertops, flooring, and new hot water heaters, because many of the homes in the area locate the hot water heater outside, often on ground level, which allowed them to be submerged in the salt water. Sometimes they'd even get new doors or windows, and often they got new tubs, toilets, and lavs. The inventory at the warehouse was standardized as to the size of pipe, fittings, and electrical connections whenever possible to minimize waste and reduce inventory costs. So this theocratic government did not fail to provide any necessary thing. It provided materials, an army of willing workers, and the know-how. Most importantly, though, it provided Jehovah's Holy Spirit. Human government failed continually by not providing real relief for the homeless by repairing their homes, being unable to control unscrupulous contractors that swindle homeowners, seeking to wrestle property from the distressed owners through legal loopholes, being unable to control wanton waste of relief funding, and being unable to make an accurate accounting of funds spent.
Our conversation that we were starting that got a little warm over there. And see, we have a sister with us. And that's, man, we protect our sister. But three congregations met at this Kingdom Hall here. Jefferson Park, New Orleans Central, and of course, Mid-City. Because in fact, this is where you are. You're in Mid-City. And so there are three congregations met here. There are no more. The brothers worked on this building. They went inside, remediated and such. And also we try to keep the property up. And that's a must. But you can tell our neighbors don't always cooperate with us. And that was important. One of the things that we had to focus on, and we had laughs in it in reality, but we were reminded in a loving way that the Kingdom Halls have to be up in par, and there's a reason. And there it is. That name, the Jehovah. Because remember, the reason you are here is to assist your brothers, but that's not your primary reason here. Your primary reason here is to reinvigorate pure worship. See, remember when the flood came in New Orleans and the city shut down, the most important thing that shut down was pure worship. And so that's why you're here, to reestablish pure worship. Because pure worship must be elevated. People need to know where true government is, theocratic government. So in order for them to know that, it has to be in operation. And that's why you're here. That's why you're working on the Friends' home, so they can get back into their routine, so to speak, and that is the ministry. Everything we do is about the name, the Jehovah. And then things come in order. And so that's why you're here, to establish pure worship. I say the brothers need homes, so they can be able to organize. They need places to meet for book study and homes, and Kingdom Halls. We need all these things. We got to elevate pure worship. But back to where we left off at, to show you how theocratic government worked for us and some of our experiences. Jehovah's love, it runs deep. There is nothing on the face of the earth runs deeper than God's love. And we know that. So I'll give some examples you may say of that. Well, when we came back and I mentioned how the Kingdom Halls and the congregation was set up in the suburbs and how we started to function, we were back in the ministry. But we still had a lot of damage out there. It was wind damage, but we had a lot of damage. More than we could possibly handle. We were doing what we could because we were trained as people not to depend on government. Because we never want to form an alliance with government. We use government, we are taxpayers and as such. And we use it in limited form. But our trust has always and always will be in our God Jehovah. And so when January came and we had a 2-day assembly, we had to go to Bessemer, Alabama, Birmingham, 6 hours away, and our homes are in disrepair, many of them. But of course, the greatest thing we have is our relationship with Jehovah. So we had to go there. But Jehovah understands that. So what he did through his son and through the organization, we had a 2-day assembly in Bessemer, Alabama. We were encouraged to go. And this is what the society did. A letter came through from the governing body, and it said, we, the governing body, we have decided, due to the circumstances and the situation that you brothers are in, we're going to underwrite this assembly. In effect, we're going to pay for it. But that's Jehovah's great love. That's our brotherhood, because that society did come from you. It did come from you. But that's the brotherhood, and we appreciate that. But now, that's only half the story. What about the other half? Because remember, would you leave your home to go there in disrepair? Well, Jehovah understands that. So in his great love, him and his son and his organization, they being Theocratic, they have a worldwide brotherhood. So we have a brotherhood. And so the contrast was, we could go to the assembly, because see the people that were working at our house, they were our brothers. So if you left and went to Bessemer, the person, the mold remediation, that was your brother. The painter, that was your brother. The roofer, your brother. Theocratic government at work. Now here's the contrast. Every day in the paper, in the Time-Picayune, you would read about these scams that people were enduring. I'm talking huge scams. Literally thousands of dollars. Sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands. Not one of our brothers were being scammed if they were working in harmony with theocratic government. But this is what we found out. As a matter of record, only Jehovah's Witnesses were getting first-class mold remediation. Very few people of the world were getting it. Only the rich were able to even afford it, and that was the issue. In fact, the Time-Picayune brought out that for a medium-sized home, about 1,200 squares, it would cost you $10,000. You get a first-class mold remediation, and the brothers were getting it. That's theocratic government at work. And remember, we talked about the basis of theocratic government, is godly law. See, when you're working on a brother's house, see, your concern is Jehovah. And that's the power, that's the love. You see? And so we can appreciate theocratic government works, brother, and it's working in our behalf. But now here's the attitude we must remember. It doesn't matter whether a person came here or not. You came here, but you represent your congregation. You represent your family. That's Jehovah's viewpoint. That's the scripture. Jehovah had it recorded in 1 Samuel 30, verse 24. When David went out to war, he told those men, he says, no, this is the thing. He says, those who go to war and those who guard the baggage get the same. That's Jehovah. And it's a good thing. And so, whether a person came or not, we appreciate our whole worldwide brotherhood. If you left your elderly mother there, or children, your children need you, and you sacrificed that for the brotherhood. So, it didn't matter, and it doesn't matter whether you actually came or not. You prayed. If it's all you can do what the widow did, Jehovah would appreciate it. Because remember, theocratic government runs by the authority of Jehovah, not men. And so everything that happens here is due to Jehovah's Spirit, His power, His stamp of approval. Whatever accomplished is accomplished here. That's what we know when we come to appreciate. And that's a great contrast between theocratic government and worldly government. It works. And it's working in our behalf. And we appreciate that. For example, what is theocratic government doing? What are some numbers regarding theocratic government in regard to Katrina? Well, Katrina affected from Texas to Florida almost 5,500 homes. And that just put a roof on the house. That was a house work done. We're approaching 20,000 volunteers. Theocratic government at work. Well, most corporations and entities that do large work have a lot of waste. What's the contrast? Well, the kitchen crew is at $1 meal. When you're fed, that meal is running $1 a meal. That's efficiency. Theocratic government at work. We do not waste. See, the faithful slave to the governing body will never throw your money away. humility is a basis for theocratic government. It's not in the contrast. See, you could see Sister Pierce down here working in the kitchen and in cleaning. You will never see a high-ranking religious leader unless it's for a photo op, working menial work, as it were, in the world. When Brother Pierce came down here and he gave an entire talk, when he ate at the kitchen, he stood in line like everybody else, and he didn't necessarily have to. He ate at the same tables we ate at. That's the humility of theocratic government. See, that's what theocratic government does for those who adhere to it. Because everybody who are a subject of theocratic government appreciate there's only really one person that really matters. And that's him right there. It's Jehovah. No matter who we may think, in our heart and mind, we appreciate spirituality. We know everything. That's all that matters. It's Jehovah. And that's why you're here. And that's the example being set in the neighbors. They have taken notice. We have unbelieving mates, several men. I even know some of them personally, who while they never really opposed the truth, and I met them and they're baptized. And they took their study serious after the hurricane. They've been going to memorials and a few meetings for years. But only since the hurricane. We had one example, one man, he did not want the brothers to work on his home. His sister said, no, I want my brothers to work on my home. And finally he gave in. But even then he would mope around with an attitude, but the brothers showed him Christian love. By the time they finished that house, he was cooking for him and he made a big pot of gumbo for him. Said they won him over with Christian love, theocratic love. And that is a story that's repeated. Theocratic government works, brother. In fact, in Baton Rouge, they had a beautiful picture, the main relief center, of all these ethnicities. And under it says, the New World Building Program. That's what you're doing. The society is using this as a blueprint for New World building. That's theocratic government at work. And it's guided by godly love. And so, what you're doing is awesome. In the contrast. But see, again, we go to the scriptures. See, when David beheaded Goliath, he made a powerful statement. And in praising Jehovah, he said that the Philistines may know that you are the true God. But more than that, he said, also your people Israel. They too know, because they were lacking faith. See, they were lacking faith. They seen the power of Jah. And so likewise, even the friends here, maybe they were lacking faith. But this has built their faith in Jehovah. See, they can make a vivid contrast between theocratic government and worldly government. And also, always remember, this is not taking place in a third world country. The government that failed here is the United States of America, the seven world power. The federal government, those levies are under the supervision of the federal government, the United States of America. Not a third world country, Haiti or the Dominican Republic. These walls belong to the United States of America. That's what failed. The problem that these people are having is with the government of the United States of America, the seven world power. We're not having problems with theocratic government. Theocratic government is working for us. And it will continue to work for us. And that's why it's so important that we continue to follow theocratic order. We have to, because there are examples of those who did not follow theocratic order, but we're going to stay positive. But they suffer. Sometimes maybe you go in a home and you say, boy, who did this work? Well, what happened was maybe they went and got a contract. And now you brothers going behind a contractor who did shoddy work. Why? Because they didn't follow theocratic order and wait. Patience is a virtue of theocratic order. We must wait on Jehovah and we must do things his way. And that's what is being taught here in the United States of America. We've had brothers from every continent on the face of this globe here. Only us. Can you imagine? And that's, even though Satan, you know he does not like it, and you know he tried to throw roadblocks. But he can't do anything, because he's fighting against Jehovah and his son. You see, that's why to give the experience when we went to our Kingdom Hall and got our water and bread, we were the only one. But we never had a problem with looting. Other people had problems. Why? Because Jehovah wasn't allowing it. Would you think Satan wanted to loot the place? Yes. See, it reminded me of the Watchtower. Jehovah uses angelic forces. Jehovah says it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. If he says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And all Satan can do is just get angry and mad, furious. But his day is coming. And so that's why it's so important. We try to share our experience. And we're going to share some more. But now what we can do is we're going to go to the 17th Street Canal, unless you have some questions. Yes.
So this is the water line here.
Yes, it is.
Building.
Yes, it is.
Is this a functioning Kingdom Hall?
No, it's not. We had to, see, remember, we are a spiritual Theocratic organization, so we don't have political time. And so we had to take care of our property because otherwise Satan through the system would have tried to take our property. Remember, Satan's goal is and continues to try to shut down pure worship. He's not going to do it, but he's still going to try. Because what he's counting on, what Satan counts on is this. Remember, he said, if I put pressure on a man, he would turn. See, he understands that Jesus is not going to turn on Jehovah. And he pretty much know now, since 1919, that the faithful slave, the governing body, is not going to turn on Jehovah either. But it's us who are coming in the recent years. He tried to get us to turn. Because he realized that those brothers, few in number, need our support. He understands that. So he tried to get us to turn against Jehovah, to make it difficult. You see? And so they would try to take our property, but that's not going to happen. There are more with us. Because that name, and see, that's the thing what we come to appreciate. I was telling a brother my personal experience. See, what happened was the society set up a brother. We had a brother out of Texas, and he was assigned to our congregation in Kenner Rivertown, and he was like a shepherd. So he would call every publisher, from the presiding overseer on down to the newest publisher. And he was like a shepherd, and he'd go, and like my experience, and so he was shepherding me. He wanted to know my emotional states, this and that. And at the time we were shaking. But this just to show you how theocratic government works. See, theocratic government is not just concerned about your material, your financial needs. It's concerned about your emotional, your spiritual, far more your spiritual thing. For the slave to realize that, see, that's the wisdom, that we needed somebody to talk to. It didn't matter how strong you were, how long you had been in the truth, you had been shaken, you had been hit hard, really hard. And so we were assigned shepherds to our congregation. Take care of us. Now, what's the importance of that? See, sometimes we do have to go to worldly doctors for mental and different things, but that's never really the best sort, because their method of dealing with circumstance doesn't always harmonize with Jehovah. But we got qualified brothers in our organization, and so the society uses them whenever possible to our aid. So we were assigned a brother to look after our emotions, and somebody we could talk to, we could vent, so to speak. You see, and that's the important thing. You see, only us as a religious body were encouraged to report where we were to the faithful slaves. See, it shows they were concerned about it. Well, they're responsible for us. Jesus allowed them to have control over all of his belongings. That includes us. And they take it serious. That's the difference between the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses and the world religious groups. They're only concerned about themselves. They're hired men. And hired men ran when the water came up. So you can just see the contrast. So it's so much here. You know, it's just here. And so much of society is learning, and the brotherhood is learning. So, any other questions? Oh, I think you had a question you wanted, because you weren't at the wall. What was your question?
The 3 people that happened to die, if my understanding is correct, there was an older sister and a pioneer sister and somebody else.
I don't know. I know they were older friends. One got electrocuted. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know that. As far as whether they were a pioneer or what. But I know it's 3. That has been confirmed. Now, where was they? Could have been a pioneer. I don't know. I can't say that because I never confirmed that. But I have confirmed there were 3. You see, so I have did that. Because I had the privilege, which was a tremendous privilege, because whenever the Bethelites would come down and give talks, like we had 2 Bethelites down yesterday. I don't know if you know it or not, but we had 2 from Brooklyn yesterday. They came in. But I always got to meet them or tour them. So I would get a lot of information. So I got the opportunity, which is a great privilege, to meet Guy Pearce one-on-one, which is a unique privilege for as I'm concerned, because see, to me, those are the most important men on the face of the earth. Because those are the men that Jehovah and his son put in charge. They're important men. See, people talk about kings and presidents and sports stars, those men, death is riding those men. Them men don't dispense life to nobody. It's only the governing body, the faithful slave. So those men are the most important men on the face of the earth. And that's why we encourage every Wednesday when they have their meeting to pray for them. They have this whole responsibility on those men. Everything that this organization, they have to carry it out. For that name, that's a lot of responsibility for imperfect men. But Jehovah and his son has seen fit to give it to them. They are the most important men on the earth. And we appreciate that. And that's why they somewhere we should flock to hear what they got to say. We should flock to hear. They say if governing body members in town, you should want to hear him. See, in effect, they are modern day apostles. They're the ones who Jehovah is using. They're not using nobody else. Those are the men. They have the final authority on everything here on earth. That's who Jehovah and his son uses. They have to give approval to whatever goes on here. See, this relief work, that came from the governing body. It wasn't a bunch of brothers say, well, we're going to organize this and then we'll see if the brothers approve of it. It don't work like that. Those are the most important men on this earth.
Theocratic government, from the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses and through the congregations, provided an abundant supply of spiritual, physical, and emotional needs to all of its affected citizens. By extension, others in the community benefited in their lives. Security was maintained, with protection coming from heavenly places for those that followed theocratic direction, to keep focused on what really matters, our spiritual responsibilities and way of life. When something bad happens, people always ask, why? Why did this happen? Why were people living in an area that was under sea level to begin with? The following is an explanation of the events and circumstances that led to the devastation of Katrina.
Now I'll try to explain to you a hurricane once I get everybody. This is Lake Pontchartrain. So here's your problem. You came through a floodgate. L5, you might have seen it. You came in here, you had to enter through a floodgate. It's open now, but they will close that floodgate. When you go back out, you look to the left, you'll see that gate. Okay? It's the only way you get through here, the floodgate was open. The whole city sets in like, see that levee and the floodgate? That's the whole city is surrounded by that. So what happened is, you have to be on the other side of that for protection. So what happened was, on August 29th, the year 2005, we had a Category 5 hurricane out in the Gulf of Mexico, which was a humongous hurricane. But when it landed, at 6:12 a.m. at Beerish, Louisiana. It landed 6:12 a.m. And that's where we had a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses down there. And when it came in, it just took everything from the Kingdom Hall. Only a slab was left. Now, it was a Category 4. Now, what makes a hurricane a Category 4? You have to meet a standard. Well, to be a Category 4 hurricane, that means you have to have winds sustained at 175 miles per hour to qualify as a Category 4 hurricane. According to the local paper, the Times-Picayune, she had consistent waves of 30 feet when she hit Louisiana's coast. And that was the problem. We have back here, adjoined this lake, what we call Mr. Goat. It stands for Mississippi River Gulf Outlet. Katrina used that as you would use an interstate. So she pushed all this water from the Gulf into up this Army Corps of Engineers brainchild. It connects with this lake. So all that water came into this lake. Well, the problem was with this wind pushing all this water, it entered the canals, these drainage canals that we have. And one of them was the 17th Street Canal over there. Well, according to the paper, the force of that water and wind caused that 900-foot breach. Pushed that wall in 15 feet. 80% of the city was flooded. Only 2 areas were not flooded because of Katrina, and that was the Garden District and the French Quarter. Only 2 areas. 80% of the city had water varied anywhere from 3 feet to 15 to 16 feet. That's what caused that. Now, what happened was, this is salt water. The pumps, a lot of them are down because the salt water damaged them. So even now, the last I read about, I think we had about 19 pumps really running, because most of them were down because of salt water. So that's the thing. So if you'd have came here early after the hurricane, you'd have seen boats everywhere here, all over. All on the interstate, you'd have seen boats on this thing. In fact, over at the marina, these boathouses, it did tremendous damage to these boathouses. But that's the thing. And it's not really a deep lake. They dredge for shells here, but generally speaking, this lake probably average about 8 feet deep. It's not a, only way they dredge is deeper. It's a basin, it's a low-lying area. What it is in Louisiana, in particular in New Orleans, we have what we call spillways. We got the Bonnie Carey spillway. And what happens is when the water rises high, we open these locks, these channels, and we have bayous. So we flood out our bayous. They're river arteries of the river. In this case, the Mississippi River here. But we have all these bayous, Louisiana bayous. And in fact, I'm going on a bayou later, swamp bayou. And so they would open them and they would lower the water, rather be mostly on the river. Because what happened is that the water, as the snow melts up north, it threatened our levee systems. In fact, one year we had cruise ships, we had to move the cruise ship because the water had risen so high on the river, but the power line go across the river. So the boats couldn't make it, the power line, they would clip the power line, cut off the electric. So they had to move them until they were able to lower the water. But that's where we live. So if you're down the quarter, see, like you here, you see this big ship pass by like that. So you gotta have 1.4 million people living below water. But that's where the French decided to build it, because it's a French city. But we have a lot of culture here, and we love this place. But that's basically the thing here. Now, sometimes people ask about, what about evacuation? What are you planning? Well, they're better now, but Jehovah has always as a God of wisdom taking care of his people. So, for instance, if you were evacuating because of Katrina, and you say, well, I don't have no money to spend in a hotel, because every time, people jack up prices on hotels, and everything goes up. But of note, and that's another contrast, and I like to bring that out because it's very important, because it's about Jehovah, and it's about his name, and we're going to protect that name at all costs. Only Jehovah's Witnesses, as a matter of organized record, when you are leaving an area to evacuate, as you go north and inland, but you have to follow Theocratic orders. They begin to open up the kingdom halls. So you just got to call Jackson, Mississippi, call the brothers in relief, and say, where are the kingdom halls being opened up? Brothers are opening up kingdom halls as you go north. Only Jehovah's Witnesses. So all you got to do is find where the kingdom hall. In fact, we had a sister in our congregation, because remember, after Katrina struck, Rita struck. She had went out west, Rita struck, and she had gone to Alexander. She said, me and my daughter, we got it, we said, we're going to Alexander, first kingdom hall, we're going to stop there. She said she went to the kingdom hall. She just said, brother, I need help. And it was such a powerful story. She said, brothers, I didn't know what to say. Brothers, I need help. And they took care of her. And that's the story being repeated all over. You just go to the kingdom hall. Brothers, I need help. Only we could do that. See, only Jehovah's Witnesses could do that. Because we are brotherhood. See, we don't look, we want to know if anything, are you authentic? We're not gullible for a scam. But if you are legitimate, you're going to get the help. Nobody else could do that. You can't imagine a Protestant just going up saying, I'm a Protestant. I'm a Catholic. No, it don't work like that. See, and so that's the experience and the greatness. And I always tell people, in the United States we're spoiled. I say, but I think Katrina really helped a lot of our brotherhood to appreciate that we need to be closer. I would always refer to us as the weak link of the organization. I say all these other countries, they go through so much, they recognize that they need the bond, the brotherhood. And we're so dependent on, we got money, we can get things, work hard, you can achieve things in this country. That's a fact. But when they fail you, when they fall, where are you going to go then? You've never been trained that way. And so the organization is training us, the experience of the brotherhood, and we appreciate Jehovah Unity. Because remember, we are facing the greatest tribulation known to mankind that is coming. It's a theocratic tribulation brought on by God. And only those who are going to survive it are those who are theocratic. And I'm going to give you an experience. And that's why we have to be loyal to Jehovah. Now, we have had examples during this hurricane of those who weren't loyal. We had an example of a sister who chose to stay in the city with her disfellowship son. And she was out in Kenner. She left her believing daughter and believing son-in-law to come in the city. 3 nights and 3 days on an overpass. Almost died. 74 years old. That was an unwise decision. But see, if you just accepted the arrangement of this fellowship, see, but when you've been not appreciating that arrangement, it's easy. You always associate with it. But see, the thing about that is you gotta get it. See, when the tribulation comes, the only person gonna be able to help you are those who are theocratic. See, it's not like Katrina, because if you were fortunate enough to get out of Katrina, you could go somewhere. You could go up to Washington State or Montana or anywhere, and somebody would have laid you out, so to speak, right? Finest things of America, but not during the Great Tribulation. Now, here's the question. Wouldn't it be sad to be found associating with God's enemies? Who's going to speak for you? Who? Who's going to debate Jesus? You think Jesus is going to be disloyal to his Father because in sympathy during that time? I don't think so. Not during the Great Tribulation. You think the governing body is going to say no to Jehovah at that time? No, I don't think so. Because Jehovah's warring against his enemies now. It's about his sovereignty now, and that means the right to rulership, not the right to debate. So that's why it's so important that we as imperfect humans who fall often align ourselves with theocratic order. You think any righteous elder who loves God gonna go against theocratic order at this time? See, it's not a time to readjust now, it's a time of judgment. Now it's a time to readjust, to follow theocratic order, not then. So that's why it's so important. And this is a lesson Katrina is teaching to God's people. There's just so much good coming out of this awful and bad situation. We have to be theocratic, brothers, because the day is coming, it's coming fast. And it's about Jehovah's sovereignty. And those who are for it, and those who are against it. And as the brother said, there is no fence. And if you think there's one now, it definitely won't be there then. It'll be gone. Because Jehovah's will must be done. And it cannot be done among rebels and rebellious people. It just won't work like that. That's why we got what we got now. He's not going to tolerate it. And he's not going to be forced into lying. It's not going to happen. And so that's food for thought for all of us. We have to be theocratic, and we have to set the example of being theocratic. And we must make adjustments. We're making adjustments even now in our personal life. I'm making adjustments because I want to be found theocratic. And I want my brothers to be found theocratic. So it's food for thought. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go around there. We're going to see some of these boathouses. Now these people playpen.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
You was talking about a Category 4 hurricane.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't Katrina a Category 5? You didn't mention.
Well, she was out in the water, but she wants to hit land where they don't have the feeding. See what it is, the warm water, they feed off that warm water. Once they come on land, they start losing their strength. The problem with New Orleans is, see, we're close to the shore, to the Gulf. So we're so close to where they're feeding off. If you're further north, its chances are always better. By that time, they don't have the source, the fuel source. But when you're on the coast, they still relying on it because it's such a huge storm. And that was our problem. See, the city of New Orleans basically took a beating for 19 hours. It was only moving 13 miles an hour. It's a huge storm. You seen that thing on the Gulf, almost covered it. The thing was only moving 13 miles an hour. You know, it takes a while for that. And it was huge, humongous. That's a serious beating. I mean, you can imagine, in Baton Rouge, we were dealing with over 100 miles per hour winds, transformers exploding like fireworks. Can you imagine if you were here?
So a lot of these homes, I had heard that we see that have been on fire. A lot of these buildings were shorting out the electricity and catching them on fire.
Some of them were, and in the beginning, yeah, because you had gas line breaking too. So yeah, in the beginning there. Now after that, you might have had some people setting something, but in the beginning, yeah, that would be electrical as well as a lot of gas lines were breaking. Can you imagine with over 100 miles?
26
Inconsistent.
It's a bridge there. You kind of see it. It's 26 miles long. Stretches across. Oh, it's really hard to do this.